The British Empire invaded Zululand in 1879 with the expectation of winning quickly. Rather, the Zulu warriors fiercely resisted them. Colonel Evelyn Wood's forces struggled to escape overwhelming enemy numbers during one pivotal battle. This is the tale of that frantic struggle for life. Sir Henry Edward Bartle Frere, the British governor of Cape Colony and High Commissioner for Native Affairs in South Africa, and General Chelmsford, his military commander, had developed their strategy for the invasion of Zululand at the start of the Anglo-Zulu War. 3 columns were to invade Zululand and converge on Ulundi, the Zulu capital, according to the British commander's plan. The coastal No. 1 column, commanded by Colonel Charles, was to start its advance at the Tala River's lower drift. The 3rd column was to advance 137 kilometers to the capital, crossing Rock's Drift under Lord Chelmsford in the middle. Colonel Evelyn Wood's No. 4 column had to make the shortest advance, roughly 121 kilometers. About 200 cavalry from the Frontier Light Horse, 8 infantry companies from the 13th and 90th Light Infantries, totaling approximately 1,500 men, 4 7-pounder mountain guns from the 11th Battery, the civilian followers of Petu and Wood's regulars, and 300 African infantry made up the 4th column. The Zulus who lived on the flat-topped mountains that rose out of the plains of northwest Zululand were supposed to pay attention to the 4th column. These Zulus were somewhat independent of Cetshwayo due to their distance from Ulundi, the capital, which allowed the chiefs to keep their warriors for local defense rather than supplying the main Zulu army. Chelmsford needed these Zulus to be diverted to prevent them from interfering with the 3rd column's progress to Isandlwana and Ulundi. 10 miles south of a range of flat-topped mountains, at Tinta's Kraal, Wood founded a laager on January 17, 1879. Soon, the British invasion forces found themselves in serious trouble. At the Battle of Isandlwana, the British center column suffered a crushing defeat. After learning of this loss, Charles Pearson's top column chose to take up residence at Eshowe, where the Zulus quickly besieged them. As a result, Evelyn Wood's No. 4 column was the only active British column left in Zululand. Wood was ready to move against the Abacalusi encamped at Hlobane when Chelmsford asked him for a diversion on March 20th. It was then that Wood realized he had other enemies in the region besides the Abacalusi, other forces led by Prince Mbeleni. Mbeleni and roughly 800 of his supporters ambushed a company-sized Staffordshire Volunteer Regiment detachment that was camped along the Ntombe River on March 12th. Before the few men who remained were able to flee, the Zulus killed 79 of them. After that, Mbeleni joined the Abacalusi at Hlobane and withdrew, bringing with him the majority of the ammunition and supplies he had discovered. The estimated 1,500 warriors at Hlobane, even with Mbeleni's forces, were barely enough to pose a threat to Wood's camp. However, their cattle theft and raiding near the Zulu border was a significant annoyance, and Wood's defensive position was leveraged. Wood understood that until the Abacalusi were defeated, there could be no peace in the northwest of Zululand. While praising his achievements at the Ntombe River, Mbeleni simultaneously called for the immediate dispatch of Zulu reinforcements to Hlobane. Cetshwayo was prepared to comply since he saw Wood's column as the biggest threat the British still posed to his territory. Wood learned that more Zulus were making their way to Hlobane on March 26th. He made the decision to attack and risked his camp's security by starting the march on the Zulus encamped at Hlobane. He marched out with 80 Cape Colony volunteers, 70 Transvaal Rangers, 40 Boer Scouts, and 156 Frontier Light Horsemen. This came to a total of roughly 400 mounted men. The 277 indigenous soldiers from Wood's Irregulars' 2nd Battalion also accompanied the expedition, who were primarily Transvaal local recruits. 2 hours after the main column, Colonel Wood departed Kambula alone. He was accompanied by several friendly mounted Zulus, his staff, and Llewellyn Lloyd, his political agent and interpreter. With the help of friendly Zulu and rocket artillery, Wood intended for mounted troops under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Redvers Buller to ascend the eastern track to the higher plateau. The lower plateau would be occupied by a comparable force led by Major Russell. The two attacking groups advanced unopposed toward their respective goals. After that, they would sleep for the night. Buller's force began their ascent of the challenging slope on March 28th. The scaling troops were fired upon by the Zulus. 2 frontier light horse officers were killed. The fire also claimed the lives of 2 troopers. "This is our bloody, sir." To the sound of the firing, Wood rode along with his escort. Wood showed his disdain for Zulu marksmanship after he saw a Zulu rifleman level his weapon at him. Mr. Llewellyn Lloyd, Wood's political assistant and interpreter, was by his side when the Zulu fired, and his bullet struck its target, breaking his spine. A Zulu shot at Wood once more. His mount was struck by this bullet. His men gasped in fear that their commander was hurt. After yelling that he had not been struck, Wood got up and walked downhill to where the troops were stationed. Wood gave Lieutenant Colonel Weatherly the order to attack the position from the direction of the fire. In response, Weatherly spoke to his men and ordered them to move forward. Many men, however, declined to attack because they believed that charging at the current Zulu position would be futile. Captain Campbell was appalled. This amounted to cowardice, if not mutiny. After that, Campbell and a few of his men moved in the direction of the Zulu position. Campbell was shot in the head during their attack on the Zulu position, instantly killing him. The remaining Zulu warriors were forced to flee up the mountain after the other men killed a few of them. This is when Wood learned of something dreadful. Wood gazed at the scene in front of him. He could not believe what he was seeing on the plain beneath Hlobane. Approximately 20,000 Zulu Impi men were approaching from the southeast. Wood could see that they would trap Russell after obstructing Buller's escape from the upper plateau. They would need to quickly retreat to Kambula to reach it before the Zulu, even if Wood were to withdraw both groups. Wood quickly sent Russell a message telling him to approach the neck. However, Russell had a warning to send to Buller after seeing the Impi an hour and a half before Wood, thanks to the advantage of high ground. Buller understood his situation. There was no going back. There was nothing else to do but head for the lower plateau and meet Russell's force. To assist Buller's troops in their descent, Russell had moved his forces to Intenta Neck from the lower plateau. Upon receiving Wood's orders, Russell and his officers assumed that Wood wanted them to position themselves on a different neck 6 miles west of Zungwin. Russell's force left a few soldiers behind and headed that way, leaving Buller by himself at Hlobane. Earlier in the day, Buller had dispatched Captain Barton to bury the British dead in the same direction. Buller sent Barton a message, knowing that if he didn't act quickly, this Impi would kill him. Unfortunately, the message was misunderstood, and Barton unintentionally led the pathetically small force directly into the Zulu Impi's path. They quickly overpowered these men. Bull's forces could only cross Devil's Pass to get to the lower plateau and the road to Kambula. Due to the horses' difficulties on the terrain, many of the men chose to dismount. As the Zulu attempted to flee through Devil's Pass, the British faced the challenging task of repelling them. The men who remained mounted could not go more than a walk because of the terrain. Buller organized a resolute rearguard during the chaos of the retreat and fought the overwhelming Zulu numbers, allowing many of his men to escape. Buller ordered the British to head for Kambula after they managed to escape the plateau and get onto the plains despite the danger. The British had suffered heavy losses. 100 African soldiers had been killed, 110 British soldiers and 15 officers had been killed, and 8 had been wounded. Although the Zulus won this battle, their victory would not last long because they were routed the very next day when they attacked Wood's camp in Kambula. No one told you to quit your job.